Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle Gerald, and I have the privilege of being the pastor of Countryside Free Methodist Church in Sandusky, Michigan. The message you are about to hear was previously recorded. If you'd like to catch one of our services in action, we'd love to have you stop by for our 11 a.m. service. Please note that's a new time for us, or check it out on our Facebook page at Countryside Free Methodist Church. God bless you, and thank you for listening.
Well, good morning again. Some of you, at least, may be thinking, who's this guy? Well, my name is Nathan Rose. I've actually been a member of Countryside, I believe, since 2001, 2002. It's hard to remember back that long. I did go away to college at Spring Arbor University and came back to the area in 2015, where I met my beautiful wife and now have one very active 2.5-year-old and one now sleeping 9-month-old. He's good Pentecostal, I guess. Today, we are going to be studying in Judges 16, 4 through 30. Now, some people may think that's a long stretch of Scripture. As I heard someone say the other day, there's no such thing as too much Scripture. So, Judges 16 is the story of Samson. Now, show of hands here, who all is at least somewhat familiar with Samson? Great. Awesome. So, when I was putting this together, my wife and I were kind of thinking, well, what are the top, because when I first heard Samson, it was in the children's ministry. You know, you hear about this guy with long, flowing hair and was pretty much able to do anything physically that was demanded of him. So we're thinking of, what are the top 10 children's Bible stories, and kind of had to put a list together. It doesn't really give. One of them gave me like 20, the other one gave me like 7. So we had to kind of put some things together, and this is what we came up with, and they're in no particular order. We have the prodigal son. Most of us are pretty familiar with that. Noah's Ark. I think there's been like 3 or 4 cinematic views of Noah's Ark, so I think we're all pretty familiar with that. Daniel and the Lion's Den. The crossing of the Red Sea, when Moses parted the Red Sea and Hebrew people went through and then crashed on top of the Pharaoh's army. The lost sheep. You know, you leave the 99 to go find the one lost. This is one we had a little bit of trouble with, this next one. The Tower of Babel. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think this is a story I've heard much in a children's setting, even much in a regular sermon setting, mind you, but it finds its way on this list. We then have the creation story, the Christmas story, David and Goliath, who I think was probably the very first one I was aware of as a child, and then the Easter story. But today we are going to be talking about Samson, which, as you can see, was not on this list. So a few reasons I really like Samson. First off, when I first heard his story when I was anywhere between 8, 10 years old, at least that I can remember, what 8 or 10-year-old boy doesn't like a guy that's super, super strong and can do, like I said earlier, anything physically that's asked of him? Also, who doesn't like a story of redemption, which is what Samson is as well. So in Judges, this is the general theme what's happening in Judges. The Israelite people mess up. They go away from God. Someone comes and takes them over, either takes over their land or sends them away. And then God rises up a judge or a leader to redeem them. Now, a lot of people could say that Moses was a judge, could say that Joshua was a judge. But in Judges itself, the first official judge was Deborah, which I encourage you to read on your own time this upcoming week. Samson was officially the second judge in the Bible. The main job of a judge, is to settle disputes between your people, make sure someone doesn't take you over or your people over, and continue following God's plan. 3 very simple things for a judge. Samson was raised up by the religious leaders as a judge, mostly because of his physical strength alone. The religious leaders at this time, Israel was being overrun and kind of being controlled by the Philistines. So the religious leaders wanted a warrior champion. Now, people may ask, a warrior champion. Well, we can read earlier in Judges actually 15, the example I will use is Samson killed 1,000 Philistines with a donkey's jawbone, which those of you who raised your hand earlier are probably very familiar with that story. I've never seen a donkey's jawbone, but for it to help him kill 1,000 people, must be a pretty strong weapon, I guess, in his case at least. So let's start reading Judges 16, verse 4. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "If you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him, then we will tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." Now, in studying this, we don't know if Delilah was a Philistine, if she was one of the Israelites, or if she was just from somewhere. It doesn't tell us. But to find out if she can get 1,100 shekels of silver, which is about 28 pounds. So I have some little coins that we got in the children's wing the other day. This isn't even a pound. She's getting 28 pounds. So my little guy back there, he's anywhere from 25 to 30 pounds. So think of what his weight is. And it said all of the leaders. So it's more than one. It's probably more than two. We don't know how many, but she's looking to get out of there with over 100 pounds worth of silver. Just a little coin. You got to think about how big those sacks must have been. So let's continue on in verse 6. So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." Samson answered her, "If anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man." Then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him with them. With the men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the bowstrings as easily as a piece of string would snap when it comes close to a flame. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have made a fool of me. You lied to me. Come now, tell me how you can be tied." He said, "If anyone ties me securely with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then, with men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the ropes off his arm as easily as they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, "All this time you have been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell me how you can be tied." He replied, "If you weave the 7 braids of my head into a fabric on the loom and tighten them with a pin, I'll become as weak as any other man." So while he was sleeping, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into the fabric, and tightened it with a pin. Again, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He woke from his sleep, pulled up the pin of the loom with the fabric. So, Samson's not the brightest guy, as we can tell here. Yeah, I mean, you all have heard the term, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." I haven't heard of a "fool me the third time," because no one's really going to be fooled 3 times in the exact same way, except for Samson, apparently. So, a lot of red flags are pointing up here. Delilah keeps on pestering him to find out his secret. If it were me, there's a lot of other fish in the sea, Samson. Let her be. Let her be. Just go away. She's that way, you go that way. So let's continue reading in verse 15. Then she said to him, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when you won't confide in me? This is the third time you have made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength." With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So he told her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, because I have been a Nazarite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands, in their bellies, however they're holding it. After putting him to sleep on her lap, she called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He woke from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. 2 great sins have happened here. As humans, we are not supposed to be the judges of sins, but we can kind of get an idea of which one would be worse here. Is it Samson telling Delilah his great secret, or Delilah selling him out? If I think about it, I think it'd probably be Samson betraying God, because you don't want to betray God, the sovereign of everything. Samson had it good. All he was supposed to do was simply lead Israel, settle disputes, and be a warrior for his people. Pretty simple. But he went from 100 to 0 really fast. Let's continue reading with verse 23. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to celebrate, saying, "Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands." When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste to our land and multiplied our slain." While they were in high spirits, they shouted, "Bring out Samson to entertain us." So they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, "Put me where I can feel the pillars and support that support the temple, so that I may lean against them." I don't know what type of entertaining he was doing for them. Maybe him just being up there with no eyes and having no strength at this point, which they all knew about Samson had, was entertainment enough for them. Seems kind of gruesome to me, but hey, they were Philistines, right? Now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there. Let me repeat that. All the rulers of the Philistines were there. And on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign God, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Then Samson reached towards the 2 central pillars which held the temple, bracing himself against them, his right hand on one side and his left hand on the other. Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he pushed with all his might. And down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. Now, why did God allow Samson to have his strength back? He betrayed God. I was just like, God's like, no, I'm through with you, dude. It's done. Well, Samson had faith. Faith and understanding that God is the sovereign, the superior over everything. So God used Samson to deliver a crushing blow to the Philistines. Again, we read in verse 27, the temple was crowded. All the rulers were there, with 3,000 on the roof as well. If all the rulers were there, and he brings this thing down on all the Philistines that were there, including the rulers, there's no more Philistines. No one's there to take up the. They're all dead. Now, being a study of history, I was a history major in college. I like looking at parallels that go with Scripture. This is actually one of the ones that one of my teachers did. So, when you look at when Moses crossed the Red Sea, and all the Pharaoh's army chased them and everything, and it came down on top of them, we can read there's actually historical proof that anywhere from 95 to 97% of the Egyptian army gone. It doesn't necessarily in his books tell us why, but it tells us in here. The parallels are right there for you to find out. There's also parallels with this. We can read and find out when Samson brought down the temple, Philistines weren't even heard of until David came back later and defeated Goliath, which we all know about that story as well. So when I first heard this story about Samson, I decided to test it out. My parents don't know this. I went home and put myself in a doorway and tried to push, knowing that I probably wouldn't do anything. Well, I did do something. I broke the molding on the door. Yeah, that was me. So, obviously, I did nothing of great value. But Samson had faith that God would give him that strength to bring down the temple with understanding that he'd go with it. Great sacrifice. We read about a lot of great sacrifices in the Bible. One of the ones that comes to my mind is Moses, when he found out that he was a Hebrew slave but living in the palace. He went away from the palace. He went away from all the riches, and he put himself in with all making mud. I mean, you've probably all seen the movie The Ten Commandments. He's just covered with mud. 100 to 0 real fast, just like with Samson. The greatest sacrifice that we know is Jesus on the cross. He knew exactly what was going to happen to him. He did it anyway because he knew that it was going to be the most important thing that's going to happen to us in this world. So as we get to the end of the story of Samson, I hear a professor in my that I had in college say, "So what?" Well, it's a good question. So 3 things we can take away from the story of Samson. The first off is God created you for a higher purpose. As a Christian, meaning Christ-like, we are called to a higher purpose to have in every aspect of our life. Whether it be driving down the road and someone pulls out in front of us at Walmart, and we have maybe those kind words or not so kind words in our head. Maybe even say it out loud. Maybe even give a gesture. That's not Christ-like. With guidance within this manuscript and daily conversation with God, He'll have the purpose. He'll show the purpose that we have, the higher purpose that He has for us. The second, you will need God's strength to fulfill your calling. Being a Christian is not easy. When I was younger, when I was a teen, I'm thinking, you know what? Get a lot of peer pressure in school, right? When I'm older, things will be so much easier. No, not at all. However, with God giving me the strength and giving everyone the strength daily, we can persevere and we can understand that calling that He has for us. The third takeaway, You will face opposition in fulfilling God's call for you. Samson faced opposition. He faced it from the Philistines, Delilah, even some of his own countrymen. We read in John 15:20, Jesus was talking with his disciples, "A servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also." Just an association. John 16:33, Jesus says, "In the world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Some powerful stuff. If we were his servants and he's overcome this stuff, he's also shown us how to overcome those things as well. What is God's calling for me, though? I used to work with the teens, and I'd hear someone say, well, what am I supposed to do? What's my calling? That's given to you from God, not from me. However, conversations with God and studying his word will help. Also, getting involved in serving. Find out what you're good at. If you're not good with kids, hey, maybe you're good with helping a meal ministry. Not good with that, then maybe you can help in some other aspect, whether it be here in the church or we have many other opportunities in Sandusky as a whole as well. We may not have the same physical strength that Samson did. If you do, let me know. I have some jobs for you. But God gives us that biblical and emotional strength to be able to live that higher purpose, to help us give that strength to fulfill his calling, to fulfill your calling, to face those oppositions. No one said it'll be easy. No one said it's going to be great. But you know what? In the long run, God's timing and God's understanding for you is greater than your own. Let's close in prayer. God, we want to thank you for being able to speak to us through the life of Samson. Maybe not the storybook ending that we would be interested in seeing, but however, the story that you wanted us to see. The understanding that you have a calling for everyone in this room. And it takes just small steps to be able to understand the large ones. God, as we leave here today, I pray that we, one, are able to enjoy the beautiful weather that you've given to us, be able to enjoy times with friends, family, but also keep in mind that you are sovereign, you're the number one in our life, and you're the one who will lead us to great victories in your name. And you're in your name alone. Amen.